Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the April 13th City Council meeting of the City of East Bethel. This is our virtual meeting. I will bring our meeting to order. Is there a motion on the agenda tonight?
I'll make a motion to adopt tonight's agenda.
Motion made by Tim.
Second.
I'm sorry, second by Suzanne. Mr. Sweeney, could you take roll call, please?
Councilmember Urkel.
Here.
Councilmember Plaisance.
Present.
Mayor Voss.
Aye.
Councilmember Ronning.
Here.
Councilmember Harrington.
Aye.
Ayes have it. The agenda is approved. Presentations. Jack.
Item 4.0A, presentation of the annual financial statements and auditor's management letter. The 2019 annual financial report has been prepared, audited, and is presented for review and approval. Abdo, Ike, and Myers, the city's auditor, will present the report to the council. Upon completion of the city auditor's report, staff recommends adoption of resolution 2020-17, accepting the 2019 annual financial report for operations and activities of the City of East Bethel for fiscal year 2019 and direction to submit the report to the state auditor. Brad, Brad Faldesack is here to represent Abdo, Ike, and Myers, and he'll be the presenter of the financial report tonight. Brad, it's all yours.
I had to find my unmute button. Sorry about that. So you should see the, thanks for having me tonight, first off. I'm assuming everyone can see my screen, sharing the presentation. You might also have it in with your packets as well. So either way, you should be able to follow along. So if you ever want me to, if you have a question or anything, please raise your hand. I will try, or just interrupt. I don't believe I can see your screens at the moment. So just let me know when you have a question. So we'll start going through this. So the first slide talks about our auditor's responsibility, and that is to give an opinion on your financial statements. And we are issuing an unmodified or clean opinion on your financial statements this year. So that is saying that when we came in and did the audit, everything was in order and presented on the financial statements materially accurate in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles. We go through and test different transaction cycles, different transaction balances to ensure that there's support for those transactions and those balances. So we're able to give an opinion on those financial statements. So again, we are issuing an unmodified or a clean opinion on your report. So it's the opinion you're looking for when you have a audit performed. The state auditor also requires us to go through, as part of our audit of the financial statements, a series of checklists related to Minnesota state legal compliance. So there's a number of different statutes that they request us to test as part of our audit. So we go through those checklists, and if there's anything in those checklists or state statutes that would be out of compliance, we report those in the legal compliance letter. We did not find any items to report in this year's audit. So that is a clean report as well. Last year, we did report a couple findings. The first one was declaration for payment. So that was just on the back of your checks, you're required to have a stamp saying that this, that's declaring that it's paid and just and it's accurate. So that wasn't on the back of the checks last year. That has been corrected, or at least for some of the checks last year, it wasn't on there. So that was corrected right away when we came across it in the audit. One other finding last year was billing permit miscalculations. That was related to the fee that was posted on your website and that you had adopted for building permits was not the fee that was being charged. So it happened on just probably a half a dozen accounts that the city then refunded part of those billing permits last year. So this year, though, we didn't find any of those miscalculations. So both of those findings from last year have been cleared up this year, so that's a good thing. Now we're getting to some of the results, the general fund results. So the first slide here that we're looking at is your general fund balance as compared to the following year's budget. So you have a fund balance policy to maintain that above or at or above 40% of your reserves there. You can see your blue line, that's the actuals, your fund balance over the last 5 years that has been above that 40% mark. So you're meeting your policy. And that top line is your budget for the calendar, for the fiscal year there. So 2020 budget, 5.7 million. You have about 55% on hand. And what that reserve is for, once you establish that 40% rule, is because you receive majority of your revenues through your tax settlements during the year, and they come in around June each year, and then in December for your tax settlements from the county for your tax levy. So you want to have enough in reserve to get to that next tax settlement. So again, you have been meeting and watching those policies. The actual results, so your general fund, your budget amounts compared to your actual amounts. Revenues came in about $172,000 over what you had budgeted. Expenditures were about $123,000 under. For revenues, a lot of that came with your intergovernmental revenue, which was about $50,000 more than what you had budgeted, and interest revenue, which was about $40,000 more than what you had budgeted. So all the other revenues, most of the other revenues also came in above budget, but those were the two most significant items there. Expenditures, $123,000 over budget, and that $123,000 really came from that purchase of the land that you purchased for $150,000 that wasn't budgeted for the year, but you did approve purchasing that. So that was $150,000 unbudgeted, and all the other expenditures net were a positive there. So ending with $123,000 over budget. You budgeted a transfer out of $580,000. Or $450,000 of that 580 went to the streets capital fund. So overall, your general fund fund balance increased about $50,000 a year and to finish at $3.16 million, which is again about 55% of the following year's budget. Your general fund revenue sources by type. You can see, like I had mentioned, the majority of your revenues come from those property taxes. They have increased slightly over the last 3 years. The green bar in each one of these is the 2019 year. Your tax levy increased about 3% from 2018, so you can see that increase there with your property tax revenues as well. All the other revenue sources came in about where they have been the last 3 years. Expenditures, they stayed pretty consistent. You can see a little bit of a jump in your public safety. And then there was, if you look in that other category, you can see that 2018 bar is significantly higher than your other ones. You did transfer out about $1.2 million. That other category has your transfers in it. In 2018, you transferred out $1.2 million, and this year you transferred out $580,000. So that's the reason for the decrease there. All the other ones have stayed pretty consistent from year to year. Nothing really much different from the previous years. Your capital project funds. So these are all the funds you have set aside to do purchase equipment or perform or do capital projects. You can see that you have some restricted dollars there. That first set of bars, about $100,000. That relates to the park fund. You do have park dedication fees that come in that are restricted by statute to be spent on parks. So that's to the restricted dollars you have there. The majority or all the other money you have in capital projects are just assigned for capital projects. So you can see where that middle section is there, about $400,000 of assigned fund balances for other capital projects. Special revenue funds. So for the special revenue funds, these are funds that have restricted revenue sources that are coming in are restricted for a specific purpose. You can see what we look for here is are your revenues meeting your expenditures? So you can see each one of these funds had a decrease from in fund balance from the prior year. Your recycling fund, this is the second year in a row that you've had a over $20,000 decrease in this fund balance. So you want to make sure you're looking at that in 2020. You don't want to dip too far into a deficit. Your HRA and EDA funds, you did transfer money out to the streets capital fund this year to support the utility portions of the project. So that was the reason for those decreases, which likely won't continue going forward. So it's that recycling fund you probably need to watch. Your debt service funds. So here you have 4 debt service funds outstanding. These are bonds outstanding. You have a total of almost $18 million of bonds outstanding going out for final maturities in 2040. We have the 5-year schedule there of what your debt service requirements are over the next 5 years. So just over $1 million in debt service requirements you will be paying out over the next 5 years related to these bonds. So if you'd issue any more bonds between now and then, that would obviously change this chart, but as of right now, you have about $1 million outstanding. And what we look for here is, do you have enough cash? Do you have enough cash reserves to support your debt service requirements? And we're not seeing any significant deficits in any one of these funds. So you're primarily supporting these with tax levy and assessments. Then we get into your enterprise funds. First one's your water fund. I think the chart on the bottom, it kind of jumps out at you with that $615,000 cash balance. And that really related to connection fees you received in 2019. I think received $471,000 in connection fees. They really help support and bring that cash balance up from $119,000 the year before. And back in 2016, you had a deficit cash balance. So this fund is doing much better than it had been in the past. You can see the top chart just takes a look at your total operating receipts, compares those to your operating disbursements to ensure that your operating revenues are meeting your disbursements there, which they are. Really the same thing with the sewer fund. You can see how the cash jumped up from prior year up to $534,000. Here you had about $380,000 in connection fees to help bring that cash balance up. In that top chart, again, your operating receipts are meeting your operating disbursements. You do have some debt, which you're paying. That debt green portion of the bar there is the debt you owe back to Met Council. So by receiving all those connection fees in 2019, you were able to pay back part of the principal balance as well as not just the interest that you have done in the past years. So I'm able to start paying that loan back. We have our ice arena fund. You can see the top chart, receipts and disbursements. 2019 was pretty much a break-even year for the ice arena. You can see that also down below in the cash balance. No significant change there. We do have that minimum cash balance line there. You don't want to fall below that. That's there really taking a look at making sure you have enough cash reserves to support about a half year's worth of operating expenses. So being the water and sewer funds, you don't have a lot of operating activity in there. You do have some capital activity. So this minimum target really didn't come into play with those. But with the ice arena fund, you really want to have that 50% reserve on hand. So, and which you do and you have over the last 4 years here presented. Now we just take a look at overall some ratios in the next few slides here. This first one just takes a look at your overall cash balances from year to year and sources of our areas of where it's going to be spent. You can see the biggest chunk of this cash balance is the blue, which is your general fund. Then you have your capital projects, special revenue, debt service, enterprise, and then internal service funds. So, but overall, I like to just take a look at, you had $7.5 million of cash in 2017, about the same in 18, and then it went up to $8.2 million. So had somewhat of a steady increase or a consistent increase over those 3 years presented. We'll get into some of the ratios I was referring to. So here, these next few slides, we compare your city, which is a class 3 city with population of 10 to 20,000 residents. We compare your city with other class 3 cities around the state of Minnesota, and then as also with other cities in Anoka County. So the cities across the state of Minnesota is the green bar, the other cities in Anoka County is the gray, and then the blue line is where you fall. So you can see your tax rate pretty consistent with others in the county and across the state for class 3 cities. Actually, just slightly less in the last few years. From 2016, you have decreased your tax rate over those 4 years presented there. Taxes per capita, on the other hand, has stayed fairly consistent. Slight increase from 2016. You were at about $471 per resident in 16, and now you're just under 500. But again, that falls right in line with with your peer groups there. Top chart here is the long-term debt per capita. So total outstanding debt with all funds, long-term debt, this would be your bonds, and you divide that by the residents. So across the state of Minnesota, you're quite a bit lower, and then you're just slightly above other cities in Anoka County in this category. Chart on the bottom there is the debt service expenditures. That's a percent of the current expenditures. So of your current expenditures, how much additionally are spending on debt service. So you can see back in 2016, it was quite high at 40%. In the last 2 years, you've been right with the rest of the peer groups. You can see how it has declined over the last couple of years there. So now you're right in line with the peers of how much they're spending compared to current expenditures. Then this just takes a look at current expenditures per capita. So these are basically your general just operating, taking out your debt service requirements, your capital expenditures, just your day-to-day operating type expenditures. The blue bar here. So just on a day-to-day basis, you're for operating type things, you're spending about $426 per resident, where your peers are about $150 more than that. Other cities in Anoka County, and then class 3 cities across the state are spending about $708 per resident. So you can see, and just on general operating type expenditures, you are spending significantly less than your peers. Capital expenditures. This is going to fluctuate from year to year. You can see in 2017, you had quite a bit more capital expenditures than you have the last 2 years. The last 2 years have been pretty consistent as far as how much the city of East Bethel is spending per resident at just under 150. But peers in 2018 and in prior years have been slightly above where you've been spending capital. These charts get a little smaller, just trying to fit a lot of stuff in here, but total expenditures per program. So general government, public safety, where you're spending your dollars compared to your peers. Again, most of these categories, similar to the capital and the operating expenses we went through, you're significantly lower than your peers, and as far as how much you're spending per resident on these different categories. And then the last one here is revenues. And again, tax revenues is the major source of revenues for most cities across the state of Minnesota. So you can see that in both categories, cities in Anoka County as well as across the state of Minnesota, you guys, or the city of East Bethel is significantly lower at $382 per resident, where cities across the state are $543, and in Anoka County they're $516. So in all those categories, you can see there you are quite a bit less than your peers as far as what you're spending on an annual basis. So with that, I certainly would take any questions. I think just overall wrap up, I think there's the special revenue fund, your recycling fund is probably one to watch. Debt service funds are in good shape. Your general fund's in good shape. I think Mike's done a really good job getting everything ready for us when we come in and do the audit. So it makes it for a really clean, streamlined, efficient approach. So just like to say thanks to Jack and Mike for both their assistance throughout the audit process. So, but again, I'll take any questions that anyone may have.
Any questions from council? Mike, is there anything you want to add?
No, I just want to thank Brad for a nice, seamless, efficient audit. And again, thanks the council for allowing us to continue to work with Abdo. And that's it.
Okay. Okay, Brad, bring it back to you then.
Okay, that's really all I have. So again, I just appreciate all the hard work the city did to prepare for the audit, and appreciate the council for hiring us.
Okay, thanks, Brad. So we have a resolution before us. Resolution 2012-17. Brad, can you turn off your presentation? There we go. Thank you.
Yep.
So we need a motion to resolution 2020-17.
I'll make a motion for approval of resolution 2020-17, accepting the 2019 annual financial report for operations and activities of the city of East Bethel for the fiscal year 2019, and direction to submit the report to the state auditor.
I will second.
Is motion
Second.
Randy second. Discussion. Brad, Mike, and Jack, thank you again for putting together a good report. It was a nice presentation on where we sit and where how we rank with our other communities. And it's nice to see that we're continuing our kind of track history here of being on the low end of our tax rates and our per capita spending. So with that, any further discussion? Okay, Mr. Sweeney, could you take a roll call vote on this resolution, please?
Yes, Mayor. Councilmember Urkel,
Aye.
Councilmember Plaisance,
Aye.
Mayor Voss,
Aye.
Councilmember Ronning,
Aye.
Councilmember Harrington.
Aye.
Okay, the ayes have it. The resolution passes. Brad, thank you again. And Mike, thank you again. And we'll look forward to our report for next year.
Thank you. Stay safe. I'm signing off.
Okay. Next item on our agenda is approval of the consent agenda.
I'll make a motion to adopt tonight's consent agenda.
Motion made by Tim Harrington. Second.
Second.
Right, Randy. I got to hear you though, Randy. Randy,
I
you're
just
muted.
raised my hand and I didn't say anything. So Suzanne seconds.
Okay, Suzanne seconds. I did not hear that. Any discussion? Hearing none. I'm sorry, Suzanne.
Oh, I want to pull one, but I gotta find it. It's hard having the screen. I want to pull, shoot, hold on. I gotta move things around. Item E.
E is in Edward.
Yes.
Okay. Pulling item E. Any other items? Okay, then hearing none. Mr. Sweeney, could you take roll call vote, please?
As to the balance, Councilmember Urkel,
Aye.
Councilmember Plaisance,
Aye.
Mayor Voss,
Aye.
Councilmember Ronning,
Aye.
Councilmember Harrington.
Aye.
Okay, the ayes have it. Our consent agenda is passed. Suzanne, item E.
All right, this is regarding the retroactive leave adjustment for medically directed self-quarantine employees, which I mentioned at the work meeting. I was against in doing it retroactively because none of the companies in the state can do that. However, I do have a question regarding this, and my question is there measures put in place to keep this from being abused? And I'll mute myself and let Jack.
Suzanne, that's a good question. The answer is that this is retroactive and it only affects these two employees. And the eligibility for this is over now. Going forward, though, the Family First Coronavirus, Corona Family Act does provide for 80 hours of sick leave for anybody. That's a federal act that was passed. But no other employees are eligible for this retroactive pay, only the two that were described in this. So that's the safeguard that won't apply to any other employee.
So they're only getting how many total days are they getting off of this?
In the case of one employee, I think it's right at about 60 some hours. The other employee was about 41 hours. So
Okay,
I would have to see what their rates of pay are, but I can get you that if you want that number.
That's not relevant. Thank you.
Okay, Tom?
Thank you. This is the second time you've said that no other companies in the state are doing this. I have a hard time swallowing that. And one thing for certain, where a collective bargaining agreement's in place, there is no restriction or limit on doing more than what the bargaining agreement calls for. You're committed to do at least the minimum, but you can do more. I have a hard time believing. Maybe you can explain what companies you're referring to when every company in the state can't do it.
Well, I know what the law says, and I know several people who were quarantined in March who had to take PTO because their companies, HR people told them, and I talked to some other HR people too, and said that it is not retroactive for these companies. So why, my question is, why should it be retroactive for the city government?
Okay, Tom?
I think you've identified one company. I'm not sure if that's correct or not. It can't be every company, and there's thousands of companies in this state.
It's true. I have not asked every single company in the state, but the law, I know what the law says, and I know several HR managers of several companies who have told their employees, absolutely, they are not going to file anything for the month of March. It's effective April 1st. So, and that's all there is to it. I mean, there's nothing else I could say about that. I could list you a couple of companies, but I'm not going to publicize them.
Good. Tom?
What you refer to the law? What, Mr. Sweeney, are you aware of any law that precludes a company from doing more than what the bargaining agreement would call for?
No, I am not.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, I misspoke. It was the act, and I'll make a motion for you guys to approve item E on the consent agenda.
Is there a second?
I'll
Is there a second to the motion?
I'll second.
Okay, Randy seconds. Sorry, I saw Randy first. Motion made in second. Any further discussion? Mr. Sweeney, could you take a roll call vote, please?
Yes, Mayor. Councilmember Urkel,
Nay.
Councilmember Plaisance,
Aye.
Mayor Voss,
Aye.
Councilmember Ronan,
Aye.
Councilmember Harrington.
Aye.
The ayes have it. Item E is passed. Okay, on to department reports. Fire Department duty crew proposal. Is our chief with us tonight?
Mark, are you on?
Yes, I am. Good evening.
Good evening.
To ensure that the fire department is equipped to respond to a potential increase in medical calls due to the coronavirus pandemic, the department has prepared a duty crew proposal to address this situation. That's attachment 1. The duty crew would be comprised of 2 responders. These crews would operate on a 24/7 schedule. The duty crew would operate on either a 4 or an 8-hour shift, or 2 12-hour shifts based on the availability of firefighters. Staffing would be on a voluntary basis. Fire department members would sign up for the crew assignment. Once the list is complete and if the plan should be implemented, the fire chief would go down the list and post assignments to the crew. Assignments would be rotated through the list to offer all that have volunteered the opportunity for shifts. Should there be an insufficient number of volunteers to fill the shift demands, the fire chief would assign duties to the officers and those who are able to work the assignment. If call volumes for flu-like symptoms equal or exceed 3 per day or more for more than 2 consecutive days, this would be the general guideline to trigger the request to implement the plan. Should the situation related to these types of medicals occur, the fire chief and city administrator would request the mayor to execute the order to commence the operation of the 24/7 duty crew. The duty crew will answer all calls. If an incident in the opinion of the duty crew warrants additional resources, an upgrade of the call to the specific stations would occur. The duty crew would operate through the term of the federal, state, and local emergency declaration, or upon a decrease in call volumes that would warrant its termination. The duty crew would be monitored daily to the effectiveness of this plan or the need to terminate or extend the 24/7 duty crew. This proposal could be implemented within a 24 to 48-hour notice. So a couple things, Mayor, that we're finding out in council is that call volumes for fire departments as the pandemic and the spike of cases start to move west from the East Coast and Chicago. What we're hearing from departments is that right before the peak has been a significant decrease in call volume, followed by the spike in the cases where 4 times the normal, conservatively 4 times the normal call volume exists. What we were hearing from parts of south of Chicago and west of Chicago, that the staffs were burning up rapidly because of the call spike. Some of the reasons for this is when we have the call volume possibility of exceeding 4 times the normal, we worry about burnout on the staff. We also are concerned about protection of the staff. Some of our staff might be home taking care of family who are sick. Some might be in quarantine themselves, either exposed or in isolation, actually have the virus. And some might be in essential workers at a different employer. So fire staff recommends that the council consider this.
Mark, at this point, you're not looking for approval right now.
What we're looking for, Mayor, is two things: to inform the council of the plan and to be able to work with you and the city administrator should we need to implement the plan, especially between council meetings. We want to be ready to pull the trigger, should it happen and the need arises, so that we can give the best possible service that we can.
Councilmember Plaisance, you have a question?
No, I didn't have a question. I am here to make a motion to approve the plan for 24/7 paid duty crew on recommendation by the fire chief and city administrator, with the activation of the crew be directed by the mayor for the term of the city emergency declaration or until the city call volumes justify the need for to suspend its activity.
Okay, the motion made. Is there a second to the motion?
I'll second.
Suzanne seconds. Discussion. Randy.
So Mark, a couple of things. First is these duty crews, they'll be stationed at one of the fire stations during the time that they are on call. Is that correct?
That's correct. It's possible that we would rotate the duty crews when they're not responding to calls. If there's such as a downtime, they'll be assigned duties, such as checking out trucks and doing minor maintenance on the trucks.
So then my other question is that we will be making sure that we are identifying those firefighters who have family members who are on restrictions at this point already. Is that correct?
Yes, that would be right.
My only other point is, I understand that finding duty crews may be problematical depending upon if these current members have another job. It'd be difficult for them to actually commit to such long hours. It would be my preference, obviously, that we wouldn't do a 12-hour shift, because I'm wondering whether or not we would reduce the effectiveness of the firefighters during that long period. And that's my last question or thought. Thank you.
Well, the 12-hour shift has been one of the more popular ones suggested by the firefighters, because we did ask through general information if an 8-hour, 4-hour, or 12-hour would work. So it may be, especially if the duty crew was implemented for any length of time, that we'd have to, change the hours or the shifts around a little bit. And we want to be flexible to that to meet the demands of the firefighters.
Okay, Tom, you had a question?
Yes, Chief, if some extenuating circumstance comes up and somebody can't make it, how would is there a plan to replace someone who becomes unavailable for their shift?
Yes, we'd be, and that certainly could happen. We would probably make the replacement with one of the officers.
Suzanne?
My question is, what would the numbers have to look like for you to implement this?
Well, we're looking if we started to have medical calls that were 3 to 4 times a day, that where they started to increase, that would on multiple days, that would start the conversation with myself and Administrator Jack Davis on the possibility, and of course that would bring in the loop of the mayor.
But do you have like a percentage of increase of where we are now to where we'd have to be to implement it, or you're just going to wait and see how busy you get? I mean, I feel like there should be some kind of a statistic there.
Well, right now we're basically about 20% below our normal run volume, and that's pretty standard from what we have found out in other departments that have been involved in some of the peaks, where the call volume is extremely low. For example, in New York City, I was talking to a captain where the volume was actually off 60% when the peak hit, and they experienced a spike of 6 to 8 times the amount of the normal call volume. So we'd be looking about the same. We run a lot of medicals, as you know, 70%, 67% of our business is medical related. So if we had an increase of just 10%, that would spike that number pretty high. So we'd be looking in the 10 to 20% increase.
Okay. Are there any other questions, discussion? Okay, hearing none. To the motion, Mr. Sweeney, could you take a roll call vote, please?
Councilmember Urkel.
Aye.
Mayor Voss.
Aye.
Councilmember Plaisance.
Aye.
Councilmember Ronning.
Aye.
Councilmember Harrington.
Aye.
And the ayes have it. The motion passes.
Mayor, if I could?
Yes.
This is not normally my council meeting that I give reports, but I do want council and residents to be aware that on Thursday, this coming Thursday, is the tornado drill by the National Weather Service. So there'll be a mock or pretend tornado drill this coming Thursday. There'll be 2 of them. One at 1:45 p.m. in the afternoon, and one at 6:45 in the evening. And on both occasions, the sirens are going to sound.
You're on mute, Steve.
I'm on mute. Thank you. Jack, can you get an email blast out about the siren warnings?
We will, and we will get that. This should have been put up on the reader board today.
Okay, good. Sorry about that. Anything else, Mark?
Everything else will be reported on my regular council meeting. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, everybody.
All right. On to City Administrator, Jack.
Item 7G1, Local Emergency Declaration Extension. Following the emergency declarations by the federal and state governments on March 13th, 2020, the mayor of East Bethel declared a local emergency declaration on March 16th, to address the COVID-19 pandemic. City Council officially approved the declaration at a special meeting on March 19th, 2020. This declaration expires on April 15th. Due to the extension of the state declaration until at least May 4th, 2020, it is recommended that Council approve the extension of the city declaration from April 15th, 2020, and until such time as rescinded by the City Council. The declaration of a local emergency invokes necessary portions of the response and recovery aspects of applicable local or interjurisdictional disaster plans and may authorize aid and assistance. Staff recommends approval of the extension of the local emergency declaration as exhibited in attachment 1 until such time as rescinded by the City
Yeah, I'm going to move approval of the declaration extension of a local state of emergency as presented. Is there a second to the motion?
I'll second.
Seconded by Suzanne. Discussion. Tim.
Jack, I was watching news today and I see the governor extended the state to the 15th of May. Is this 4th going to be an issue, or are we going to have to come back and do it again?
No, that's why we're leaving this open-ended essentially. We're going to leave it until we rescind it on our side. So it's
Okay.
not tied into the state's date.
Okay, thank you.
Is there any other discussion? Tom.
I'm looking at the document. Due to the extension of the state declaration until May 4th, it is recommended that council approve the extension of the city declaration to correspond with this date. Could you clarify that? Does that mean it May 4th, or is that?
No, we'd sent out an email this morning as a supplement to that to change that
Okay.
to make it open-ended.
I stand corrected. Thank you.
Is there any other discussion? Okay, hearing none to the motion, Mr. Sweeney, could you take a roll call, please?
Councilmember Urkel,
Hi.
Councilmember Plaisance,
Aye.
Mayor Voss,
Aye.
Councilmember Ronning,
Aye.
Councilmember Harrington,
Aye.
The ayes have it. Motion passes. Item 2.
Item 7G2, April meeting schedule and Booster Day cancellation. Pursuant to President Trump's proclamation that the COVID-19 pandemic is a national emergency, a limit on the size of gatherings, along with a shelter-in-place order, has been issued through April 30th, 2020. The state of Minnesota extended their emergency declaration, which addresses shelter-in-place requirements, through May 4th, 2020. As a result, the format of the town hall meeting does not lend itself to remote attendance and participation and is recommended for cancellation. This meeting may be scheduled at a later date. In addition to the town hall meeting, the city's spring recycle day and April Saturday recycle drop-off are scheduled for April 25th. As a consequence of the federal and extension of state shelter-in-place order for these activities to May 4th, 2020, cancellation of both of these events is also recommended. City Council has also received communications from the Booster Day Committee indicating their recommendation for the cancellation of Booster Day. Their recommendation is due to the planning, fundraising, contractual bookings, parade arrangements, advertising, and a number of event details that are ongoing and need completions or commitment between now and mid-June. With no assurance that restrictions on public gatherings of more than 10 persons will be lifted by the date of the event, along with the possible impact of the COVID-19 pandemic on the public's enthusiasm for large outdoor gatherings. City Council discussed this item at their April 6, 2020 work meeting and agreed with the committee's recommendation to cancel Booster Day for 2020. City Council is requested to officially consider canceling the April 23rd, 2020 Town Hall meeting and the April 25th Recycle Day at the Ice Arena, along with the April 25th Saturday Drop-Off Day at the Recycle Center. In addition to these cancellations, City Council is requested to endorse the Booster Days Committee's recommendation for the cancellation of Booster Day for July 18th, 2020.
Tom,
I would move for cancellation of the April 23rd town hall meeting, spring recycle, scheduled for April 25th, and approve the recommendation by the Booster Day Committee to cancel July 18th Booster Day.
Randy,
I'll second the motion.
Randy
I-
seconds the motion. Discussion.
But before you do, did you want to add the Saturday drop-off day also, in addition to the spring recycle day, that motion?
Can we talk about that one separate?
Sure.
One? I agree, it was left off the motion, so. Tim, did you have something?
Well, yeah, I wanted to talk about the recycle center, but if you're gonna wait, I'll wait on it.
Okay. So is there any other discussion to the motion? These are all unfortunate cancellations, but they're all very prudent considering what we're going through right now. So, okay, without any further discussion to the motion, Mr. Sweeney, could you take roll call, please?
Yes, Mayor. Councilmember Urkel.
Aye.
Councilmember Plaisance.
Aye.
Mayor Voss.
Aye.
Councilmember Ronning.
Aye.
Councilmember Harrington.
Bye.
That motion passes. And then the Saturday drop off at the recycle center. My thought on that is that's a little bit different. So I think we need to discuss that thoroughly. So is there a motion to this one first? I'll make a motion that we do cancel the Saturday drop off at the recycle center for April 25th, 2020. Is there a second to the motion?
I'll second.
Randy seconds. Discussion. Tim.
Jack, that's just for one day. This recycling center on 22 will still be open, correct?
That's correct.
Because I mean, otherwise we're just asking for a problem up there. They're gonna be dumping stuff all over the place up there. So I just want to make sure that's just a one-day thing.
And when I say that'll be open, we'll be discussing that in the last agenda item.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. And I'll hold my discussion until then too. Is there any other discussion? Suzanne?
No, you guys answered my question already. Thank you.
Okay. So seeing no other discussion, Mr. Sweeney, could you take roll call, please?
Councilmember Urkel.
Aye.
Councilmember Plaisance.
Aye.
Mayor Voss.
Aye.
Councilmember Ronning.
Aye.
Councilmember Harrington.
Aye.
And the ayes have it. That motion passes. Item G3.
Frozen food sales at 18407 Highway 65. Brad Slauson, owner of the Highway 65 Pub and Grub, requested approval for a 2-day event for the sale of frozen foods from a vendor truck at his parking lot at 18407 Highway 65. The sale will be conducted by Upper Lakes Foods, Saints Food Service, LLC, a food distributor located at 3243 Snelling Avenue in Minneapolis. This company is a supplier of food products to restaurants in the Twin Cities and central and northeastern Minnesota. Attachment 1 in your packet profiles their website. Proposed sale will be on Thursday, April the 16th and Saturday, April 18th, between the hours of 10 a.m. and 2 p.m. Purchasers would enter a designated side of the parking lot, drive around to the distributor's truck, select items from their menu, and pay for the purchase by credit card. The buyers would not leave their vehicles and their purchases would be loaded by the vendor. The buyer would exit the lot from the opposite end of the entry. Mr. Slauson has offered his location for this service for those who have difficulty or issues going to a grocery store or ordering online. In light of the social distancing concerns and exposure to a large number of persons encountered at grocery stores during the COVID-19 crisis, this could be a local alternative for those needing to purchase frozen meats and those items offered by the vendor. Approval of this activity would require a waiver of those portions of city ordinance Article 5, Section 18, that relate to transient merchants. Should this request be approved, it is recommended that Highway 65 Pub and Grub would be responsible for traffic control and coordinate the plan with city staff prior to the event. Waiver of the requirements of a transient merchant's license would be only for this request, and that the granting of the waiver of the requirements of the transient merchant license for this particular request is with complete understanding that this approval is based solely on the conditions created by the current COVID-19 pandemic. City Council is requested to consider approval of Mr. Slauson's request to waive the transient merchant's requirements and fee as set forth in City Code Article 5, Section 18, to permit a food sale by Saints Food Service, LLC at 18407 Viking Boulevard, with the dates listed above, subject to the terms and conditions as provided.
Is there a motion? Mr. Pizant.
I will make a motion for the approval of Mr. Slauson's request to waive the transient merchant requirements and fee as set forth in City Code Article 5, Section 18 to permit a food sale by Saints Food Service LLC at 18407 Viking Boulevard, subject to the terms and conditions listed above.
I'll second.
Tim seconds. Discussion. Seeing none, to the motion, Mr. Sweeney, could you please take roll call vote?
Councilmember Urkel,
Aye.
Councilmember Plaisance,
Aye.
Mayor Voss,
Aye.
Councilmember Ronning,
Aye.
Councilmember Harrington,
Aye.
And the ayes have it. The motion passes. G4.
East Bethel Recycle Center operations. The East Bethel Cedar Lions Club, chartered in 1975, has been operating the City Recycle Center for the past 16 years. The basic services provided by the Lions Club at the center include sorting, baling, and storing cardboard bales, sorting and separating tin and aluminum, crushing and loading glass, collecting and storing those items left after hours, cleaning and maintaining the exterior and interior of the facility, and monitoring the use of the oil collection site. Since the onset of the COVID-19 pandemic, questions have arisen regarding suspension of activities at the City Recycle Center. An agreement between the city and the Cedar East Bethel Lions Club authorizes the Lions to operate this facility in return for a monthly fee for their services. The city owns the building and all equipment used in the operation. The city does not supervise nor provide daily direction of the Lions Club. The Lions Club wishes to continue their operation of the Recycle Center during and through this crisis. In the opinion of the city attorney, Chris Nelson, the operation of a solid waste recycle facility under Public Works Infrastructure Support Services falls under the category of essential services. A suspension of the Lions Club operation of the Recycle Center would have the following consequences. Unless the site is fenced and secured from entry, there would be unauthorized drop-offs at the facility that would require continual cleanup by city crews. City crews would have to service the site for sorting and loading those drop-offs that are placed in designated bins and containers. Monitoring of the used oil and antifreeze collection tanks would be reduced, which could result in the potential of oil overflows and expensive site cleanup. Use of city crews to maintain the operation of the facility, even at a minimum level, would reduce maintenance and project times for other essential city activities. There's a secondary effect. There would be an increase in illegal dumping along some of our less traveled streets that would require additional cleanup. Recycle Center provides a valuable service, and use of the facility by the public is conducive to and consistent with the social distancing recommendations of the Minnesota Department of Health. City Council is requested to approve the continued operation of the City Recycle Center during and through the local and state emergency declaration, unless directed otherwise by the state of Minnesota.
Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion for approval to continue operation of the City Recycle Center during and through the local and state emergency declaration.
Motion made by.
Second.
Is there a second?
Second.
Suzanne seconds. Discussion. I can tell you the recycling center is definitely getting more heavily used last month. I've been using it a little bit more, and every time I go there, the bins are been full, which I've never seen before. So I assume they're collecting much more material than they have. Jack, do you know if the Lions are running into issues of capacity of their recycling facilities taking the items?
We haven't heard anything on that yet. They do have quite a capability of storage on site with the one tractor trailer there that's for cardboard, and there are several
I think
roll-off.
it is important that this stays open.
No, I certainly agree, and I think this lends itself more to the social distancing requirements in the Saturday drop-off day. There's a distinction because people can come here essentially 24/7 and spread their presence out, as opposed to being concentrated in a 2 or 3 hour time.
Tim?
Yeah, Jack, our public works guys, are they gonna continue to keep that clean, or is the Lions gonna still use the Dallas over there to keep the area clean?
Well, Dallas is a line, so they essentially do everything unless there's a special need that they can't do that we do occasionally go down there and assist them with. But for the most part, they handle 95% of the activity at the center.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Any other questions, discussion? Okay, hearing none to the motion. Mr. Sweeney, can take roll call, please.
Councilmember Urkel.
Aye.
Councilmember Plaisance.
Aye.
Mayor Voss.
Aye.
Councilmember Ronning.
Aye.
Councilmember Harrington.
Aye.
The ayes have it. The motion passes. On to staff report. Jack.
I have nothing further to add, Mr. Mayor.
Hey, council reports. Tim.
Last week we had the Sunrise Watershed meeting. It was on a conference call. We just went through a few things: cart management update, the Lower St. Croix Watershed Plan update, and then we paid a couple bills, and that's all I've got.
Thank you. Randy.
I have nothing to report at this time. Thanks.
Thank you. Suzanne. Suzanne, you're on mute.
Sorry, I forgot about that mute button. I have a question. I got a call from somebody who lives on Viking Boulevard today, and you guys all have talked about this person, so I know who I'm talking about. But she said that there was a case against her that got dropped in December, and in the last couple of days, a police officer went to her house to see if she was residing there. And I'm just wondering, if a case was dropped, what authority do we have to go back and start asking if she's even living there again?
The case was dropped. Excuse me, Pat, go ahead.
Patrick. Pat.
Oh, yes. If a case gets dismissed, and I'm not familiar with the case that you're speaking of, but if a case gets dismissed, you can always go back and issue additional or new citations. In fact, you can issue citations every single day. So I don't know the exact circumstances you're referring to, but the city still has enforcement authority to go back at any time, whether there was a case dismissed previously or not.
Jack, do you have any insight? I'm sorry, Jack, do you have any insight on that too?
This case was dropped for not necessarily the reason that the police officer went back there. This is a violation of somebody living in a house that's been deemed unoccupiable, and there is evidence that those people have moved back into the house. There were never any permits pulled, issued, or any work done that was inspected to ensure that it was habitable, was declared uninhabitable in 2015, and it's still in the same condition because we've had no record of any permits that have brought it up to standards.
Go ahead, Suzanne.
Okay, so here's my thinking on this. So if it was, there's two things. If it was dropped, doesn't there have to be a reason for it to be, for something to happen again? And the other thing is, if this person had inspectors, state inspectors come, what right do we have to go and tell them they can't live there? And the other thing is, for it to be deemed uninhabitable, and I'm not sure about this, I'm asking, don't they have to get, like if you're being evicted or something, you have to get a judge to, doesn't it have to go through the whole court and they have a chance to appeal and everything for it to actually be deemed uninhabitable? Those are my three comments, and I'll mute.
She can appeal the decision that it's uninhabitable. That hasn't been done. The trigger on this, Suzanne, was that essentially there was nobody living there until we obtained evidence here within the last couple of weeks. It was, lights were on, the police had checked that at night, and it's evident that somebody is living in a structure that was deemed uninhabitable. So before this, the case was dropped because some things had expired and that it wasn't assumed that anybody was living in the structure.
Tom, you had something?
Yes, as far as instances that make it uninhabitable, if this is the one we've spoken about several times in the last probably 4 or 5 years, some of the issues have been electrical receptacles without covers, light switches without covers, stairway banisters missing, things such as that, and that makes a place uninhabitable. Now, how much of that stuff's in place is hard to say, but that's what the history was.
Jim?
I guess my question for Jack is, Jack, why is the state inspecting that? Why aren't our guys inspecting that? Why does the state have their nose in there?
I was going to comment on that. It's a good question, Tim. To my knowledge, there have been no state inspectors there. They have no jurisdiction over this at the time. This is an entirely city matter at this point. And I don't know of any state inspectors that have been there. I could be wrong, but I'm not aware of it.
Okay. Jim,
I don't have anything else. I just wanted to bring that call up and find the thing, except Patrick can answer the question about, doesn't it have to go before a judge before they have to be like evicted or can't live there?
No, a property can be red tagged or deemed not habitable. But as Jack mentioned, there is a right to appeal that decision. So no, it does not have to go to a judge first.
Okay. Is that it, Suzanne? Okay. Tom?
Thank you. I don't have anything at this time.
Okay, thanks. And I just want to thank everyone who has viewed this meeting electronically. We're going to be continuing these for a while, and I hope this presentation is coming across well to everyone. I do hope that everyone continues to follow the social distancing guidelines. We're all in this together. We just got to keep working at this. So, and that is all I have. I'll take a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Suzanne makes a motion. And
Second.
Tim seconds. Mr. Sweeney, could you take roll call, please?
Councilmember Urkel,
Aye.
Councilmember Plaisance,
Aye.
Mayor Voss,
Aye.
Councilmember Ronning,
Aye.
Councilmember Harrington.
Aye.
Aye, the ayes have it, and our meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everyone.
Good night, everyone.
We got one more meeting here to go. And at this time, I would request that Tim Harrington, the chairman of the East Bethel HRA, take over the HRA meeting, which will begin at this time. Tim?
I'll call to order the April 13th Housing and Redevelopment Authority. Is there a motion to adopt tonight's agenda?
So moved.
Second,
I'll second.
Randy? We need to do a roll call on this too, I guess.
Yes.
Sure. Councilmember Urkel,
Aye.
Councilmember Plaisance,
Aye.
Mayor Voss,
Aye.
Councilmember Ronning,
Aye.
Councilmember Harrington.
Aye. We've got an agenda for tonight. Item 3, approval of January 27, 2020 minutes. Is there a motion to approve the minutes?
I'll make a motion to approve the January 27th ERA minutes. I'm sorry.
Mayor Voss approves the minutes, and Suzanne second. Roll call vote, please, Pat.
Councilmember Urkel,
Aye.
Councilmember Plaisance,
Aye.
Mayor Voss,
Aye.
Councilmember Ronning,
Aye.
Councilmember Harrington.
Aye. Motion passes. Item number 4 is HRA 2020 financial report, and I guess it's up for Mr. Davis.
Thank you, Tim. The unaudited HRA cash account balance as of April 8th, 2020 for the HRA is $34,318. The HRA levy for 2020 is $62,600. Tax settlement revenues will be distributed to the HRA in July and December. So the projected HRA account balance at end of year 2020 is projected to be $96,918, given no other non-budget expenditures. So that's where we currently are with the HRA. That's for information only, but if anybody has any question on those, I'll be glad.
No questions? Then we'll move on to item number 5. There's no action needed. Okay, we'll go on to item number 5, HRA 2021 budget levy. Jack?
For Minnesota State Statute 469.033, Subdivision 6, the East Bethel HRA must prepare and file a budget in accordance with the budget procedure of the city. The HRA approved a levy amount of $62,600 for 2020 to reaffirm the legal status of the city HRA as a standalone authority and to keep the HRA fund balance available for necessary projects. The HRA staff services are funded by a transfer from the HRA account to the city general fund to support the administrative duties and other responsibilities required of the HRA. The maximum statutory levy for an HRA is 0.0185% of the previous year's estimated market value of all property in the city. In 2019, the estimated market value of all property in the city was $1,139,959,000, which enabled a maximum levy of $210,800. Due to computer problems in the city county's property records division, valuations for 2020 have not been issued as of this date. As previously mentioned in the previous report, the unaudited cash balance of the HRA fund as of April 8th was $34,318. The 2020 HR levy of $62,600 will be received in July and December 2020. Projected 2021 budget amounts could include general fund transfers for staff support activities, $30,500, administration and legal of $1,500, and HRA projects and gap finance, $37,500. which would produce a proposed levy for 2020 or 2021 of $69,500. I'd like to point out too that this amount is just a starting point for developing and discussing the 2021 preliminary budget, and it's not a final amount or an approved amount. This would be determined by City Council during the budget process. The $69,500 would reflect an increase of 11%, which matched the approval for the 2020 budget. This amount would be only 33% of the maximum levy that could be adopted. As the HRA has no scheduled meetings until July 27th, 2020, staff is seeking direction for an HRA levy amount to include in the preliminary 2021 city budget.
Is there a motion out there?
What
I'll
staff?
move it. Go ahead.
Staff is recommending as a starting point that the preliminary budget for the HRA for 2021 be $69,500.
That the preliminary budget for the 2021 HRA was $69,500.
Mayor Voss made the motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Suzanne, second. Pat, could you do a roll call? Or no,
Certainly.
discussion, I'm sorry, discussion.
I have a question.
Go ahead, Suzanne.
Thank you. I'm just curious as far as when it says general fund transfer for staff support activities, what does that $30,000 entail?
It includes support services for the city administrator, the finance coordinator, the finance director, the receptionist who does accounting work for the HRA, and the administrative coordinator. All these things we do for these HRA projects. In the past, we've had HRA participation in the last two utility projects that we've done that's related directly to housing development for those. Reports have to be filed, and this just covers those services that are required statutorily by the HRA.
So are they paid like a whole separate check for those services? I guess or is it just part of the city budget transfers, shuffling money around?
No, there's no separate checks for these. These are transferred into the general fund, and they're broken out for those departments to allocate to pay for that staff's time that's spent on these HRA activities.
Okay, that's all I needed to know. Thank you.
Jack, I have one question. You know, the 69.5, I mean, if things don't work out real well for the city this year, we can always go back to that 62.6, correct?
Well, again, this is we just need a number to plug into the budget so we can get a starting point. And this is what this recommendation is. So when the preliminary budget starts, this can go from 69.5, it can go north or south, however we need it to go.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other questions? I guess we need a roll call vote on this then. Pat?
Councilmember Urkel,
Aye.
Councilmember Plaisance,
Aye.
Mayor Voss,
Aye.
Councilmember Ronning,
Aye.
and Councilmember Harrington.
Aye. And last thing, item number 6, I'll accept the motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Suzanne made a motion to adjourn. Second? I'll second.
I'll second.
Randy?
Councilmember Urkel,
Aye.
Councilmember Plaisance,
Aye.
Mayor Voss,
Aye.
Councilmember Ronning,
Aye.
Councilmember Harrington.
Aye. And that's it. Pat, thanks for everything tonight.
Oh, yeah, sure. I actually got to talk a little bit more this time.
good seeing you
I
again.
guess that's it, unless you got something else, Mr. Davis.
Well, the only thing I'd like to say is welcome back, Pat.
Yeah, it's good to see all of you again. Good to see your faces. Too bad we're not in person.
That's all I've got. We're adjourned.